So yeah, I've recently moved from the Centre for Ecology and Hydrology and now working at Queen Mary University of London. A little bit about me in terms of my background. I have been working in a research and development role for about 10 years now. And as Bill said previously, working as a researcher both in academia and in industry. And I've got well over 20 years experience now of writing and reviewing research grants. I'm a member of NERC's Peer Review College, and I've sat on review panels for NERC, for BBSRC, for the GCRF, the Global Challenge Research Fund, and for the Newton Fund as well. So kind of international research is in my blood a little bit, really. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you a very quick overview. We haven't got a lot of time today, so this is really going to be a really quick overview of what are the ingredients for writing a successful research proposal. And I will try and pull in some of the sort of the particular things, you know, around international research as well. What I will do as I go through my presentation as well is I will point you to other resources that you can access when the time comes to write your own research proposals and which you might find helpful. So my understanding is that the audience today is varied. You know, some people probably have considerable experience writing research proposals, but others, you know, they're just starting out on this journey. So what makes for a successful research proposal? Well, it is about having that great idea. It is going to ask an important question, but it will offer a realistic chance of a solution within your project time frame. And it will be led by someone. Actually, more increasingly these days, it's not a someone, but it is a team, as probably Tom has alluded to in his presentation. It's a team who've got a set of relevant skills and experience that can provide a solution to a particular research challenge. Now, one of the most important steps for a successful research proposal, and this may sound like it, you know, so completely obvious, but it is to read the core guidance and then to read it again. So many research proposals can flounder at the first hurdle when the core guidance has been not read properly and they miss something in that guidance that in the worst case scenario makes their proposal ineligible or not out of scope, or again, more likely, you know, they just don't quite hit the mark that they should be doing. So this is a really important step. The guidance as well will often have information on how your proposal will be evaluated. There'll be a set of assessment criteria, and that's really valuable information when you come to drafting up and structuring your research proposal. So read the core guidance and read it again. Next is about building your team. So of course, this is something that Tom will have emphasized in his talk. So it's about finding your academic partners with the relevant skills and experience that you need, but also reaching out to those broader project partners, non-academic partners from perhaps the charity sector, from NGOs, from the public sector, or from business, or possibly kind of community groups as well. They all may be active project participants in your project. Also, there'll be your wider stakeholders. And again, the wider stakeholders are going to be people that are interested in your research and want to use some form of it at some point in time. So it's about building that team, thinking about who the active participants in the research team are and who your wider stakeholders are going to be. So from Tom's presentation, you would have got a sense that, you know, this building a research proposal is not done in isolation. It's about co-design, it's about working together. And again, having a diverse team from different perspectives, from different disciplines, all that can be brought to your proposal. And you can bring in those new perspectives, those new skills, and potentially new solutions. So there's clearly a lot of added value by having a diverse team. So when you're ready to start writing your proposal, the one bit of guidance that I would give is really write with a reviewer in mind. Your proposal, in most cases, and that's whether it's a UK funding scheme or a European one, will be reviewed by somewhere between 3 to 5 reviewers. Those reviewers will want to see a really well-structured proposal that's going to articulate the importance and goals of your research, how you plan to achieve those goals, and what you will do with the results. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more about the review process, and it's really something I would advise being able to understand, there is a video on YouTube that outlines well, it's from the MRC, but it's the generic sort of UKRI peer review process. And that process is around, as I said, 3 to 5 reviewers. Then usually the applicant has a chance to respond to those, and the reviews and the applicant response go to a moderating panel. Now, sometimes it's not always the case that process is followed. Sometimes there'll be a review panel, and the members of the review panel will review the proposal. So there is some variations there, but what you will see on that video is the typical kind of process. And again, it's a similar process that goes through for European funding as well. And I think when you look at that as well, you'll see that the reviewer has a difficult job to do, and especially when it gets to the moderating panel as well, or review panel. The people reviewing, you know, they have their day jobs, they're busy people, they've got competing demands. They may have more than one proposal to review, sometimes, you know, double figures proposals to review. And also an important point to note is they're not necessarily a specialist in your area of research. So having a really well-structured, well-articulated proposal is really key to write for that reviewer and keep them engaged in the process. This is the key thing that you want to be able to do. So keeping the reviewer engaged, a really solid, clear proposal structure is very helpful. And what I've got outlined on this slide is a sort of a generic way to approach proposal writing. Each competition will have its own guidance and own specific structure. But in general, you should articulate what is it you're promising, what is it that the proposal is aiming to do. But why is this important? You know, and how are you going to advance the state of the art? What's the gap that you're going to fill, or the particular challenge you want to address? What is the specific problem or objective that you have? And again, this can be broken down into sub-problems or objectives that are going to form the basis for the work that you're going to do. So typically you would see research proposals that have an overarching aim and maybe 3 to 4 objectives that they want to meet within their proposal. Next, you'll have a good chunk of the proposal that's going to describe the activities that you're going to undertake under those to meet those objectives. And this is where you're going to describe your approach and your methodologies. You will want to describe the outcomes that you expect from your research and what that might then lead to. So this is a kind of a generic way to approach grant writing. As I said, each competition will be slightly different. There is an ex-academic called Andrew Darrington, and he has a number of resources on his website that are quite helpful in terms of approaching how you summarize a research proposal and how you can structure the proposal. And it follows kind of what I've outlined on this slide here. So definitely worth a look at some of those resources. Generally, from a very general perspective, reviewers are really going to want to see a nice, clear, concise proposal. They may not be specialists in your area of research, so avoid the use of jargon and explain terms where you feel you need to. Again, there'll be guidance on margin size, boring things, but they need to be followed. There'll be guidance on margin size, the font type and size. So yeah, just stick to those. And I really like to see white space in a proposal. There's nothing more off-putting for a reviewer than to see just a block of text. It really makes it hard to read. So separating out your paragraphs, separating out some key points that you want to make with paragraph gaps is a really good idea. And again, using bold for titles and subtitles. So just for where you want to place some emphasis. And of course, you know, often, you know, it's a challenging writing a research proposal, but where you can bring in any photographs or diagrams that really can just bring alive what you're proposing for the reviewer, that can also be really, really helpful. So think about what it is that you can do to make the job of the reviewer easier, keeping them engaged, keeping the proposal easy to read and really logically and well laid out. So with a lot of international research, there will be other aspects that you will need to consider in your proposal. And one of those is about how the results of your research are going to be taken up and used, and what the potential impacts might be from your research. So obviously either from a European perspective, impact is a really strong theme from European funding, and it's also a strong theme within overseas development assistance focused research, like under GCRF or the Newton Fund. So at the proposal stage, you will need to plan for any potential impacts from your research. So the key questions to ask yourself is who's going to benefit from my research and how will they benefit? There are lots of tools out there to support impact planning at the proposal stage. These are just a few, there are others as well. There's a nice guidance from DFID just about generally about research uptake and signposts you to different methodologies and tools that you can use. And Fast Track Impact also has some great resources that can help with your impact planning, benefit mapping and stakeholder analysis, that kind of thing. So definitely worth a look at some of those when you come to do this kind of have to address this in a research proposal. Lastly, what I'm going to mention actually is about managing the proposal development process, because I think if you this is something that can really help you. You know, it can be a time pressured, sometimes frustrating process writing a research proposal. So if you can start off with a good plan, that can be really helpful. So once you've got your team together, definitely have a kickoff meeting of some description to discuss the proposal. You can discuss, you know, obviously the nuts and bolts of it, but also discuss who does what and when are they going to deliver that by. So you might want to divide up certain sections of the proposal and assign it to different people. You may have an internal deadline whereby you want drafts prepared by. So having on the right hand side is just the checklist that I use for proposal development. So having something like this where you can assign ownership for different sections of the proposal and make sure you've agreed deadlines by which you will have drafts and then final versions by. Having regular catch-up team meetings just to monitor progress and deal with any issues is also really important. And of course, as you're going through this process of discussion and iteration, you're going to develop the proposal, start to see who's going to be doing what within the project, and start to plan your budget as well. So just to conclude then, in summary, you want to have that great idea for a research proposal. You want it to be fundable and be a fit to the call that you have in mind. I guess my strongest message really today is this one about writing with a reviewer in mind. You know, having seen well-written proposals and having seen less well-written ones, you know, it makes such a difference if you've got a really well-structured, clear, concise proposal. And I can't emphasize more, you know, it's obviously it's about the research, the science, the innovation that you want to do within your proposal. That is going to be the key thing that will get it funded. But the quality of your writing will also have an impact on how you structure the proposal. For international research, then yes, you will have to consider other requirements in your proposal, such as impact and planning for impact. There could be other things as well around risk assessments, project management, and there may be gender issues that you might need to consider as part of your research as well. So all those other aspects will have to be brought in as required. And yeah, manage that proposal development well. It'll make it easier for you as potentially a team leader to manage your team, to make sure that they're delivering and supporting that proposal development as you go along. Lastly, just to mention sort of training and mentoring for those of you who aren't experienced in grant writing. Most research organisations and universities will offer some kind of training around grant writing through a learning development or through professional development, something like that. So it's definitely worth doing any courses that come along in that regard. A lot of institutions now will offer courses on impact planning as well. Things like public engagement too, they will often offer courses as well. So take advantage of those, absolutely. And mentoring, you know, where you've got colleagues who are willing to let you shadow them on a proposal or give you you know, bring you into a consortium so that you can follow the proposal development process. Again, really good opportunities. And again, most organizations will have a research services support function. And again, staff within those teams are skilled, they know about grant writing, they've got the experience and can guide you, and usually will have access to past proposals as well. So you can look at successful proposals and see what, you know, where you can draw out positives from those. So definitely, you know, access and mentoring and training where you can, and take advantage of the expertise that is in your institution. And again, if you're new to grant writing, start small, you know, where maybe apply for a travel grant when we can travel, or a networking grant, just to start building your experience with grant writing and get you going on that journey. Thank you very much. I'll finish there.